The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to session 4 of the Lean into the Community webinar series. Today, we're going to talk a bit about business insurance and some of the things that you need to consider around your coverage right now, both whether or not you need to add insurance or whether you should be looking at calling up your insurance agent to decrease some of your insurance. With businesses either being closed or having a limited amount of accessibility right now, there may be an opportunity to save some dollars, as well as if you've opened up a new service, such as online or other types of services, you may need to look at that with your coverage. So we have two panelists here with us today that are both from different parts of different insurance agencies, and today we're going to run the session a little bit differently. I will have each of the panelists kind of do a short introduction, and then I'll have a couple of questions for them so that they can talk through from their each perspective of what people should be thinking about and doing right now in terms of their business insurance. So before we get to that, I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm your host, Wendy Austin. I work for WSI Healthy Digital Solutions. I started my company this past year and joined the chamber in February and have not had a large chance to talk to and network with a lot of the chamber members, but I'm trying to do my best to get the word out and educate a lot of folks around different topics during this time, because I really feel like as a business community, now is the time to reach in and lean on each other to help to support each other so that we can come out of this hopefully stronger, more able to handle these types of things that may be thrown at us in the future. So with that, I'm going to introduce our two panelists today. We have John Celentano and Doug Riccio. John is from Southeast Agency, and he is a senior account executive, and Doug is from Liberty Mutual and is an account executive. John, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, good morning, everyone. John Celentano, Southeast Insurance Agency. Looks like I need a new headshot. Unless everyone's having coffee with me this afternoon. I'm in commercial insurance. Been doing this for 20 plus years. And at the current time, even though we are taking on new clients, we're getting a lot of calls from existing businesses that are looking for ways to manage some of their cash flow issues that have been impacted by the COVID crisis. Mainly working in payroll and workers' comp insurance and things like that. One of the biggest questions we've gotten for anyone that owns commercial property that has landlords, if you are renting to anyone or your business is losing income due to foot traffic or the loss of foot traffic due to the COVID crisis, one of the big questions is, will my insurance replace any of my lost revenues due to COVID? And unfortunately, that answer is no. It is a very common question. First thing you think of when your business is impacted by any event is, what is insurable and what isn't, and what can I recoup from my insurance carrier, and how can I be helped through a challenge. And right now, business income coverage, which is generally a part of most insurance policies, does replace loss to income, but it has to be due to a covered claim, which means if you're a gas station and you get hit by lightning and you're out of power and you can't operate your pumps for 3 days, you're going to be reimbursed for those lost sales because a lightning strike is a covered event. Unfortunately, illness is not covered by any of the insurance policies. What we can do, however, if you're a larger corporation or you have a larger payroll, the companies are offering a lot of solutions right now. They are not canceling anyone if you are behind on your monthly payments. If you go that route, A lot of businesses are facing cash flow problems in this climate, and the companies are putting everything on hold as far as sending out cancellation notices. So if you are behind due to a loss of revenue, contact your agent or contact your carrier if you're with a company that writes directly through the internet, and let them know that you are having cash flow issues due to the COVID crisis, and they will work with you to keep your business insurance afloat. That is first and foremost, because if it cancels, it's a little bit of a challenge, more of a challenge getting it back than it is keeping the current program and working with the company's billing departments. Unfortunately, they won't be waiving any premiums, but they will be putting them on the back burner. So you may end up with a month or two relief where you don't have to pay your premiums while you don't have any cash coming in. Another solution, if you do have a large staff, your workers' comp premiums are based on your payroll, and part of your insurance is based on your sales. If you are expecting a long-term drop in revenue or in payrolls, you can call your companies and have them adjust those numbers in the middle of the policy term. So, give an example, if you normally have 100,000 in payroll and now you think you're only going to end up with 40 or 50, you could effectively cut your workers' comp premiums in half while keeping the policy intact for when they do come back to work, and it would reduce your monthly outlay of cash because you won't be paying on those extra payrolls in the interim. Same thing goes for sales. A lot of businesses are rated based on your sales numbers, and that would be another factor. So for the short term, unfortunately, we can't replace your lost income, but there are options that the companies are offering to help you mitigate some of those challenges at this current time. And with that, Doug, I know you're listening in. I'd like to ask Doug to give us some information on Liberty's ventures and possibly some of the personal insurance side of it.
Yes, hi, my name is Doug Riccio. I do work for Liberty Mutual Insurance in Wallingford, and of course, we're all working from home these days. But yeah, what I would talk about mostly is personal. John is the commercial specialist, and I do handle a lot of I do handle personal insurance for a lot of folks here in Connecticut, and you may or may not have seen a lot of the insurance companies are doing a customer relief refund. This is on a personal side where your auto carrier will be actually giving you back a percentage of April and May because your guys are not driving, you're not on the road. They're going to give you 15, some are giving you 25% back. Because I do work with Liberty, but I also sell for Progressive and Plymouth Rock and Travelers. So we're, in a sense, we're brokers these days. So all the carriers that I do represent, they do have a relief fund in place. So you'll be seeing that in the form of whatever way you pay your auto premium, whether it's through your checking account. If you pay direct mail, you'll get a check back. If you pay coming out of your checking account, it'll go back into your checking account. If you pay via credit card, it'll go back as a refund back to your credit card. So, and same as John was saying, with flexible payment options, your carriers are probably doing that. They all have departments set up to where you would actually, you can call in there and you can get your payments deferred. They won't excuse, they'll defer, they'll get your payments deferred, on a case by case basis. So if you are out of work or you do have trouble with your personal insurance, I would highly recommend reaching out to your insurance carrier and just to work out a payment schedule.
All right, thank you, Doug and John. I have a list of questions and topics that I would like both of you to talk about from the different perspectives, but also I wanted to let everyone know that if they have a particular question, you can raise your hand and I can unmic you, or if you want to, you can put a question into the questions box and I'll have the panelists answer. And that's open to you at any time. So Doug and John, in terms of the assessing your business needs now, can you kind of talk about what a business needs to do if they've been closed since the beginning of March, and they're not seeing any revenue. What does that first step look like?
First step would obviously be, and I think something I brought up in my initial talk, if you're having cash flow problems, one of the big initiatives the companies are taking is with the COVID crisis, revenues are down, people's foot traffic is down, and people just aren't able to meet their needs, financial obligations to the carriers to keep their business insurance afloat. If you are, depending on the type of business you are, if you're a restaurant or you deal with anything that's perishable, obviously you need to keep track of what type of inventory you're losing. I'm not sure if spoilage coverage will kick in, because again, illness is not a covered loss. But while you're dealing with all of that, you do need to contact your companies and let them know that the COVID situation has impacted your ability to pay your premiums. Losing your insurance for your business is not a good idea. Most business owners are, either building owners where their business is located, or they are tenants inside of that building. And even while there's no foot traffic, if there's another event, if there's a fire or a lightning strike or vandalism or you get broken into, you still need to protect your liability and your property in case someone is on the property and gets injured, or your property is damaged due to another cause that would be covered by the insurance policy. The last thing you'd want to do is have everything fall apart, and then there's a fire or a vehicle accident, and now you have real property that is damaged, and you have no recourse to get any of it repaired or replaced. It would just add to the financial difficulties that everyone's facing right now. So if you are struggling with a closed business, but you do plan on reopening, or hope to in the relatively near future, the companies and your agents are more than willing to work with you to make sure you don't end up in a worse position than you are already. So I would definitely recommend to anyone in the business to reach out to their agent or their carrier and let them know if they are having any type of difficulty, and do that earlier rather than later, because it's easier for the company, if you're in a good billing standing at this point, to put a hold on things or defer it, as Doug mentioned, rather than you're in the spot now where some of these things are automated. And if the computer system puts you in a cancel status, unfortunately, some of those cycles are irreversible. So now they have to go in and try and reinstate it, and then it always asks for money. It tends to get more tangled the longer you let it go. So if you are in good standing at the time and you do have installments or premiums coming due that you do not think you'll be able to make, call them now, get ahead of it, and let them know that you do have some challenges that way, and the companies will do everything they can to make sure that you stay afloat so that you're not further damaged by the situation.
And Doug, did you have anything to add to that?
No, I mean, John, I feel covered everything. And it works for both, as you can tell, for both business and personal. On your personal level, just reach out to your agents, and your companies will work with people during this time. And because like John was saying, you don't want to have a lapse of insurance. You don't want to have where you let it go for a month or so, because then when you come back, it's actually going to cost more than it did, quite a bit more than it did when you left. You agree with that, John?
Yeah, anytime there's a break in your insurance, and I'm not sure, they haven't given us any guidelines for businesses that have let their policies lapse and then 2-3 months down the road are going to reopen or attempt to, and have been without insurance for any length of time. It opens up, unfortunately, different areas of your liability, where if there's something pending, or it's happened, someone crashes their car Sunday night at 12:30 in the morning and calls Monday to get insurance and puts the claim in. The carriers, obviously, are trying to not have that situation happen. They prefer to have you covered seamlessly. So if there is a claim and it is circumstantial, those red flags that I kind of just mentioned aren't questioned. If you're in the system and there's conversations and notes on the account that you've been given arrangements due to the situation, those things won't be questioned farther on down the line. And as far as someone canceling and then coming back, generally in the business, if you have a lapse in coverage for any length of time, when you go to get it back, you're faced with higher rates or companies that just won't insure you because you haven't had continuous. I don't know what exceptions or allowances they'll make on those situations in the future, but right now they do have assistance in place to make sure that that situation doesn't happen.
Okay.
So contact them earlier rather than later, and it'll just save everybody down the line as far as red tape and questions and what ifs.
Okay, great. Thank you. Now, in terms of businesses that are open, what would make a business that's still operating right now need to reassess their business insurance coverage? Let's talk a bit about a lot of companies have had to move to online services. Is there anything that would make them need to readjust or reassess the coverage that they have?
The only thing that I could think of, because with webinars and things we're doing today and the Zoom meetings, and I'll give you a perfect example of what that question I think is a good answer to that question. One of my clients is a therapist, and with virtual consulting now, because no one can really meet in person, she is expanding her license into New York, and her insurance is only geared for Connecticut. Every state has their own insurance laws. And in order to operate in any given state, you have to be licensed in that state, and you also have to be insured in that state. Or if you're insured in Connecticut, you need to make sure that your Connecticut policy will meet the New York minimum requirements to operate a business in New York. So with people, the internet sales, if you're in a retail business and you are shipping to a different state, really not that big a deal. Sales are sales, whether they're foot traffic generated or generated off the internet, when it's a box product. But when you are talking professional liability, such as a therapist, or if you're in the trades and you're crossing state lines, workers' compensation, if you have workers traveling physically from one state to another, those laws and those liabilities must be in place, and you need to have specific coverages for any state that you're not already insured for. So people that are doing business in Connecticut and have traditionally only done business in Connecticut, if you will be expanding over the borders, if you're on any of the border states, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, New York, just contact your agent, let them know exactly how your business is changing and what additional things you will or won't be doing, and they can advise you on what coverages you'll need to make sure that your coverage is actually protecting you in a separate state. That right now would probably be the biggest concern, unless your business profile or business activities are substantially changing. It's always a good idea to have a conversation with your agent, let them know exactly what you're up to, because people kind of think if someone's an electrician and they kind of know woodwork, and then they're asked to do a deck for somebody, your insurance might not be giving you all the coverages you need. I know it's an example on a smaller scale, but anything that seems small on the insurance side can be a big deal depending on the liability that goes along with the activity. But first and foremost, with everyone trying to make newer connections and expand their businesses somehow, if you are going to be tipping over the state lines, definitely check with your insurance professional and make sure that what you're doing is covered by the policy that you have, and if it's not, what your options are and what their cost might be. If it's going to be incurred, it may offset what you're planning on doing.
Okay, and what I'm hearing, and to summarize, is that inside state lines, or the coverage that they have currently within the territories that they have, whether that's online revenues that they're getting, or traditional revenues that they're getting with brick and mortar, that doesn't really matter. However, if they're starting up a new business in a different territory, that would be when they need to reassess.
Absolutely. As I said, insurance laws, just like everything else, are state to state. Every state has their particular way of doing business and things that they want as a minimum to be covered or written into the base insurance policies, and not every state matches every other state. So if you are looking to increase your radius of operation and you're crossing state lines, absolutely make sure that you're covered to do so.
Okay, great. And Doug, did you have anything to add for that?
Well, no, John. Again, John is he does the commercial. He's the expert in the commercial insurance, but like you was saying, that you take on more exposure by going from one state to another, and you just have to adhere by the state laws, and you have to. It's just like having your a car registered in one state and your insurance in another. You can't do that. Everything has to follow the state that you're actually licensed in.
All right, great. So let's change the topic a bit to claims. And I know you mentioned up front that the claims, right, you can't claim lost revenue due to COVID-19, but can you talk a bit about the types of claims that you are still handling right now and what that process kind of looks like right now in terms of, you can't have a claims agent necessarily come out and look at damage and that type of thing right now. So if you could kind of talk a bit around claims.
Yeah, and that I think involves claims and in sales. And Doug can back me up on this one. Anytime as an insurer, we write a new piece of property, whether it's a home or whether it's a business, a brick and mortar store, the companies all go out and do a physical inspection of the actual property that we're covering. Or if it's a business, they want to make sure they have hands-on or they have someone show up to make sure that the business profile that we gave them on paper actually matches what they're doing in real life. You'd be surprised. When I was working for the Hartford, quick story years ago, we had and this was in personal insurance, we had an account with a half a dozen Cadillacs, and every couple of months they kept changing them over. And one of the underwriters finally asked why this one person had all these Cadillacs, and it turned out it was a funeral home. So that account, not having been inspected right out of the gate, needed to be insured as a business, not as somebody with 4 or 5 hearses that they just like to drive around in. And the big difference is obviously on a personal insurance contract, you have no way or no coverage to be doing that kind of business. But back to your question, the companies are doing a lot of workarounds. They rely on physical inspections to make sure that insurance or the property that we're covering, whether it's a home or a business, is actually eligible. It actually fits into the box of their program based on what we told them as an agent. And instead of anybody doing these physical inspections, now they're coming out with software apps. I did one, and this is on a personal account, but the house is over 75 years old, and normally they would walk inside and do an interior inspection of the furnace, make sure there's a circuit breaker box, no fuses, that all the home's operating systems are in good shape, and they have an app now where they text the client, and the client opens up the app, does the interior inspection, it walks them through taking photos, and the minute they close the app out, it sends it right back to the carrier so that the company can see real time almost all the inspection points that they would normally go out or have one of their reps go out and take a look at. And they're doing that with claims as well. You've probably seen the commercials where if you get into a fender bender, and we'll call them, the smaller accidents, fender benders, back into someone in a parking lot, they're having you take photos of the damage, and they're emailing you the sheet to let you know, or let the company know exactly what the extent of the damages are, and it automatically goes emailed right back to the adjuster, so they can do a rough physical inspection based on the photos, and then they rely on the body shop professionals or whatever it happens to be, regarding the claim, to back up the photos, and they're just doing everything by photo and email these days. Much the same with claims, unless it's a large loss. If you have a building burned to the ground or gets substantially damaged, someone's going to have to go out there. But in those instances, they're still keeping all the social distancing guidelines in place.
And Doug, would you like to also talk a bit about what Liberty is doing for claims?
Yeah, I could talk about the claims. I do want to mention about what John is saying about the inspections, because that is important. And I do know a lot of the home inspections, they're not sending inspectors out at this point. So if you do a new building, they probably won't do an outside inspection right away, but they they will actually, they'll set it up for down the road when everything is all over. So that'll, almost every insurance company that I write with, they'll send somebody else to do whether you have a rental property or it's your own personal house, they will send someone to do at least an outside inspection, just like John said, to make sure everything matches on paper that we told them is when they go out and do a visual. But as far as the claims go, John hit the nail on the head there as well. I mean, you just got to, they might be delaying things, doing things a little bit differently, but they're, at the end of the day, they're doing the same kind of process that we're all used to and accustomed to, as far as if the claim is need, that they will make you whole again. So if you do have a claim, they will do what they can to make that right, because that's what they want. That's what you're paying insurance to do.
Yeah, the carriers are definitely, they do look for ways to make a settlement with you. A lot of people, just the old, car salesman adages and things like that, always think that the insurance company's looking for ways to not pay you. It's pretty much the other way around. An insurance contract is a legal contract, just like everything else. Everything that's covered is in the encyclopedia that they give you. And if you have any questions on a specific business that you're in, if you don't have your policy handy, go over those concerns with your agent. But as long as the language is in the contract that is a covered claim, they're going to look for ways to make sure that you are made whole and make those payments and get those payments out quickly. I know there's staffing issues and everyone's kind of getting used to working from either home or having their employees remote in and out. So there is a little bit of a lag, maybe a day or two more you can expect in your claim response times just due to the situation. But once you do get an agent or a claims professional working with you directly, they're going to make it easy for you. They're going to do everything they can, and again, working with the phone apps and things like that and photos, whatever they need, we can do a good chunk of it digitally, either by phone, DocuSign, documents back and forth, emails. They're going to do what they can to minimize human contact, but if it's necessary, they'll make arrangements. But in the interim, technology is king right now.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I'm glad to hear that they're doing everything they can. So I had captured a question before the webinar series. So this is recorded, just to let you know, so people will be seeing this afterwards. So the question that I had captured from someone that'll see this afterwards is, when I open again, I don't plan on hiring back as many employees. Will that change my insurance?
Yes, it won't change how you're insured, but it will definitely change what you are paying. And this goes back to an earlier comment I made about your workers' compensation. If you have employees, you're required by the state to make sure they are covered by workers' comp in case of an injury. Workers' comp rates are based on exact payroll, and that is done yearly by audit. Normally, the adjustments are made at the end of the year. So again, if you normally have 100,000 in payroll, one year you had 110, they'll bill you for the extra premium for the 10 over. If you ended up with 80, you'll actually end up with a refund for the 20,000 you paid on that you didn't actually pay in payroll. So when you do come back to work, looking at your annual policy, and we use January to January just because it's easy. If your normal payroll January to January is 100,000, and your workers' comp premiums are 20 grand for the year, if you're losing half your payroll for the year and you don't plan on replacing a lot of it, you can call in the middle of the policy term, call now or when you get back to work and say, hey, we only paid in 25,000 up until March, and we only expect to pay maybe another 30,000 by the end of the year. Can we adjust that to 50,000 instead of 100,000? And they can do that adjustment in the middle of the policy term and then recalculate your rates based on that. So with lower revenues coming in, you're also not paying, the higher insurance amount when you really should just be paying for the payroll you're using. So again, absolutely call your agent or call your carrier and ask them to make that midterm adjustment so they can adjust your bills immediately instead of having to wait for it to come out at the end of the year on an audit. If you don't have any or as much cash flow coming in, you definitely should mitigate what you have to pay, and the companies will be happy to do that. Some carriers, depending on the trade and the company, if you have a payroll service like Paychex or any of those guys, ADP, you can go on what they call pay-as-you-go. That means your payroll service reports every month to the insurance company, exactly how much payroll you had for that month, and then you pay that month for the payroll that you actually had. So if you have zero payroll that month, if you're in a construction company or a retail situation where it's up and down, it's going to be yo-yo for a little while. While you don't have the payroll, your premiums will be lower, and then while you do have the payroll, obviously you'll have that higher bill, but hopefully that means higher payroll equals higher revenue. So while you have the cash flow, pay the bill, and then when you don't have it, hopefully those bills are lower for you. And again, each carrier chooses to participate in those programs or not. So it's something you can touch base with your agent on and ask them about pay-as-you-go workers' comp or a midterm adjustment to your payroll numbers. Either one of those are great solutions. And if you get it as low as you can, and you're still a little on the fence, they may still work with you on the billing due to the COVID situation.
All right, great. Just a reminder that if you have a question, please put your questions into the question box, or if you want to actually have me unmute your mic to ask a question, just raise your hand. I do have one other question that came in earlier. So what if someone gets COVID-19 from their business? So some of these businesses that are open but trying to make sure that there's no exposure and everything, if for whatever reason the public and or their staff get sick, is there anything from an insurance perspective that can occur?
Not that I'm aware of, only because it's a pandemic, and it's a very different situation where you went to a restaurant and you are consuming their product, and now you get food poisoning. That is direct cause. If the restaurant gave you some bad food, you're entitled to have your medical bills taken care of, depending on the severity. There's definitely liability, and that's what it really all boils down to, whether there's fault. And if you're a restaurant, you're obviously supposed to be serving food that has not gone bad, that won't make you sick. And if those safeguards are not in place and the restaurant is directly liable for your illness, that's where you see those food poisoning claims. Unfortunately, with COVID, if someone in the workplace is exposed, and due to the nature of the beast, it could be weeks before anyone even shows any symptoms, and it spreads to the restaurant or the workplace. Unfortunately, right now there's really no recourse. You can't sue, as it's a global disaster. This isn't something that would be you could basically make one person liable for. That would be real tough to put through. And as far as the insurance goes, that they would never pay on something like that, because you have to prove intent or negligence somehow. And that with the situation being a global pandemic, I think those arguments would probably be out the window. So if anyone's worried about, my God, they came to my place of business and someone was sick and they ended up getting it here, you can't be held liable for the spread of COVID just because of the situation right now.
All right, great. So I'm going to close on the panelist side, but I'm going to have Rosanne do the actual closing statements, if you will, and talk a bit around the Chamber of Commerce. Doug and John, is there anything in closing that you would like to say before I move on?
I would just like to, thank you for everyone for listening to us talk. Hopefully you picked up some pointers. In the climate right now, everyone has to kind of look out for their business and their families, and your agents are here to help, whether it's me or Doug or whoever you're working with. Those initial phone calls or earlier phone calls will put you in a much better position to weather the storm out and keep more options open to you going forward over the next few months, until hopefully everything gets back to some semblance of normalcy. So, if you're afraid to call because, well, I don't want them to think, our business isn't doing well, or there's some hesitation, please do not hesitate. Reach out and work with your agent or your company. They're more than willing to work with everyone at this point. And they are, like Doug said, trying to return some money. A lot of companies on the personal side are giving back 15% of the rates as refunds or discounts on the premiums. They know people are in a tough time, and they're trying to help. So reach out if you need it, and take the help while it's offered, because who knows what will happen 6 months from now.
And also to John's point, the insurance companies, not on a business, I know not on a business side, but on a personal line, they are giving that customer relief back some money on the auto, for the last couple months' bills, but they're donating a lot of money to research. So I know Liberty is, and Travelers are. So they're donating, like in the millions, like 50. I know Liberty's donated $15 million for crisis grants. So, the insurance companies are all here to help each other out, and by reaching out to them, on either a commercial or personal side, that's they're here to help you, to make you guys right again.
All right, great. Thank you, guys. And thank you so much. I'm going to turn it over to Rosanne and have her talk about what the chamber is doing right now.
Good afternoon, everyone. Rosanne Ford, President of the Midstate Chamber of Commerce. Thanks to all of you for joining us. Thank you very much to our presenters this afternoon. And a true heartfelt thank you to Wendy Austin. Yes, as she stated earlier, she's a new chamber member jumping right in, and I am just truly grateful for Wendy for coordinating this very important and valuable series. We certainly encourage all of you that are listening now or during the recording to get in touch with us, whether it's getting in touch with Wendy or myself here at the Midstate Chamber in terms of future topics that you would like to be informed on. As always, the Midstate Chamber is here to help as well. We are in our 125th year of business, and this will not get us down. We continue to be active. I was just looking at our calendar. While we had so many great networking events that would happen in person, you are seeing a lot of webinars and things happening right now. Next week, we are going to schedule our first virtual business after hours, which will be on April 29th. Keep your eye out on our website and for our e-minders, as we will be updating and getting those details out to you. But on the topic, but again, on the hot topic of funding and relief for small businesses. Yes, there is another round of funding that we are hoping will be passed through the legislature any day now. I have heard of a number of businesses and organizations that have been approved for their PPP funding. I have heard of businesses that have received approval from their bank, but the next piece is contingent on the next round of funding. So things are happening. I don't know if we will see any other rounds, but I guess my message to you is, if you have not yet filled out the application and submitted it to your bank, now is a good time to do that. Secondly, I do hope that you share this information with all of your folks that you might know that are Latino business owners. On Thursday, April 23rd at 2 p.m., we are holding a special Spanish-only session for Latino business owners. It will include Julio from the Small Business Administration. It'll include HEDCO, which is the Hartford Economic Development Corporation. They have a special pool of low or no interest loans available only for minority businesses. And we'll also have a representative from SAMA, which is the Spanish American Merchants Association. So please, that information is out on our Facebook page already with the link. I'll put it in my e-minder that I get out either later today or first thing tomorrow morning. And it should also be out on the chamber calendar at midstatechamber.com. So please share that information with your colleagues, with your customers. It's just important that everyone has a fair and level playing field to be applying for all of these programs. And, there's so much information out there. It's just so important to have these sessions to sort of try to navigate through everything that you're seeing out there. And finally, in addition, we've got a couple of the webinars on the 28th. We have this WSI webinar at 1 o'clock, and earlier that morning we have one with our friends at UKS, which is Update Kelly and Spellacy. So check the calendars for these sessions. Catch them either when they're live or when they are recorded, because again, you are certainly better off the more informed that you are, and we are glad to be here to be a part of your businesses, your lives, and we look forward to continuing to work with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Roseanne. And to that point, like I said, this meeting is recorded. What I plan on doing is actually putting all of the recordings on a YouTube channel and sharing that out so that you can see all of the different sessions that we have had, as well as if you bookmark or add as a favorite the channel, then you will see all the other sessions if you aren't able to join live. And with that, I thank everyone and thank our panelists and thank Roseanne, and I will see you on Friday. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you.